All right, we're going to build a new project now. And granted, it's a little harder when you see it on the board because if you're watching it at home, you don't see it. But what it's going to basically say up here is we're going to create a couple things. Okay? When the project first runs, what we want to know, just imagine that we've been asked, are you right-handed or left-handed? Okay? I just wanted to grab something simple that would have one of two possibilities. All right? So we're going to put a title up here that's going to say righty or lefty. All right? Then it's going to come over here and it's going to say, again, it'll have that alert thing, and it'll say, are you right-handed or left-handed? And now, instead of having a yes and a no button, we'll have one button that says right, and we'll have another button that says left. Does that make sense? That's what's going to come up on your screen when you first start. Now, so this is your main screen right here. Okay? And what's going to end up happening here, you know, this is the settings, and it's got either a plus sign or the word settings or whatever on it. Okay? But what we want to have come up, you know how this says hello world when you start running the program? Everybody knows that. We're going to keep that there. All right? But as soon as you make a choice in here, right or left, we're going to have this say either right or it's going to say left. All right? And we're going to take whatever the user put in there as their choice, and we're going to save it as a shared preference. So it'll give us the chance to combine using a shared preference. We'll change this setting over here also. All right? You know, maybe we'll say choose your handedness or something like that, whatever. All right, so how about this? Choose. All right, so it'll allow us the opportunity to combine, all right, all the stuff that we've talked about. So we'll have shared preferences, and that's going to be either the right or the left hand. All right, we're going to change our settings. This time, again, we use a word, so we'll put in here choose, and we'll have an alert dialog. So the idea is we're trying to put together all three things that we've gone over in this class period. Does that make sense? And if for some reason we don't finish it, we'll pick it up there next time, and then we'll do the to-do list. All right? And whenever we get done, either I'm going to do it or John's going to do it. It really doesn't matter. But I copied an article from raywenderlich.com that we're going to use next hour. And I thought this would be the easy one. So just in case next period is going to be harder, I'm going to give you the article that I'm going to base a lot of the stuff off of and ask you to read that next hour. All right? Because if I just start, you'll be like, what? This doesn't make any sense. But if you look at it, between now and Thursday, it'll give you a day for lab, plus you can try it if you want to. All right, we're going to make some changes to it, but we're going to use that and we'll add to it as kind of what we'll be working on for our project. All right? So I'm going to come in here, and just so you know, I went back and reran this, but if you take a look up on the screen here, again, is everybody happy? Are you really glad you came to class today? And I think you'd all agree there's nothing in here under my log. All right? If I click yes, yes button tapped. All right? And nothing will happen if I click no because I didn't ask for anything to happen. All right? So as far as I can tell at least, everything we've tried to do thus far has worked. Now we're going to try to put it all together. Okay? So I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to close this project, and I'm going to start a new one. So I'm just going to close project, and I'd like you to do the same, please. So we're going to start a new Android Studio project. All right, and I'm just going to call this righty or lefty. You can call it whatever you like. All right. Again, what I'm trying to get across to you, just so everybody is aware of this, is after the break, we talked about this before, after the break, so after next week, all right, I am going to lecture on Tuesdays for the last 8 weeks. I am not going to lecture on Thursdays. They will be project days. So sometime between now and either the end of this week or the beginning of next week, I'm going to write for both classes, both the Android class and the iOS class. I'm going to write requirements for your final project that you have to do. So far in both classes, you only had 2 programs, the BMI converter and the currency converter, all right? And most people have turned those in. I'm having some problems. I figured out what my problem was. All right, well, that isn't true. I've got so many problems, it'd take too long to figure them all out. But the problem I was having saving, I figured out what that was. That was on me, all right? So, again, that's what we'll be doing after the break. So righty or lefty, and I'm just going to accept all, after that, just every single one of the defaults, all right? Now I'm going to show you something you may or you may not be aware of. Whether you are aware of it or not isn't that important, but it's important that you see this. So you know what I should have done before when I had that picture on the screen? I should have taken a picture of it with my camera, or the camera on the phone, and then I could have put it out there. But I will grab this one. God knows it's good.
Sign up with your Picasso.
You want to get in? I can take it for you.
No. Thank you anyway. All right. Now, if we go back and we look at this in design mode, you know what this looks like already. All it has is the hello world. What you may or may not know, notice text view, and the string in there is hello world. Everybody sees that. But what you may or may not know is if I double click on that text view, it does not have an ID. We'll need for it to have an ID because that text view is what we want to say righty or lefty. That's where we're going to put that. So it has to have an ID so we can use a set text for it later. So I'm going to just call it, here's a real hard one. I'm going to call it text view. Okay? Because it's the only one that we're going to put in here. So it's okay. So I'm just calling it text view. All right? And hitting enter. So you notice now it changed over here to say text view. It's got it, that's its name. All right, so everything is cool. As far as I can tell, everything's fine. All right, what we do first doesn't really and truly doesn't matter very much, but for whatever reason, I decided I'm going to do the shared preferences stuff first. So I'm going to go out into my main activity.java file, and I'm going to go down to my onCreate. All right, so you can see all that. And once I come down here, I'm going to start adding things. Now, I'm going to use that text view. Everybody hear me? I'm going to use that text view. What did I call that text view? Text view. So I better make a reference to it up here someplace, because I might use it in more than one routine. So I'm going to say text view. Oops, that's wrong. I have to say text view, text view. All right. Why am I getting the red? We all know that because we have to import android.view.textView. All right. So if I put my mouse there and do an alt, come on, come back up. Come on. Fine. I'll manually do it. Import Android dot widget dot text view. All right, now that went away. Good. The other thing I want to do up on top here, because I may want to use it more than once, is I want to set that shared preferences thing up again. Kind of tough to type. Shared preferences. Shared preferences equal this dot get shared preferences. And remember, I need the name of my package here. And I need the context, oops, dot mode, or underscore mode, I think it is, isn't it? Yeah, no, it's dot mode, underscore private. Again, it doesn't recognize this stuff, all right, because it doesn't recognize that symbol right there. So again, I can manually type it in. I don't remember what it was called, but it was something like import android.content, I think it was, dot shared preferences. There it is. And I also, I guess, needed android.content.context. All right. Now, remember what we did before, or do you remember what we did before? Here we're creating the shared preference object, right? So what we have to do next is we have to go in and we have to give it a value, and we're going to have to get a value from it. All right? Well, last time we put a value in there. Would everybody agree we put username and jscott, or you put username and whatever you wanted? This time, we don't know what that value is going to be. Would you agree with that? Because it's going to depend on whether they choose right or left. So we don't know. And we don't want to hard code a value in. All right? So what I'm going to put here right now, I'm getting that because I've got an unused paren, is I'm going to add a variable. So I'm going to add a variable to hold we'll call it the chosen hand. You know, were you left-handed or right-handed? I really should be putting comments in all over the place here. Text view, which holds words righty or lefty. All right. Here we're going to create the shared preferences object. All right, here we're going to create a variable. All right, since I called it up there, chosen hand, that works for me. Chosen hand, and that's going to be equal to, it's not chosen hand. That's going to be equal to shared preferences dot get string again, it's going to be hand, and it's going to look like that. Okay? So literally, if you look up on the screen here, or if you look up on the screen or at the board or whatever, what we want that variable to hold, if they press this button, it's going to have righty, and if they press this button, it's going to have lefty. Does that make sense to everyone? All right. So what we want to have happen is when you start writing, all right, when we start writing, we want right away, we want to come in here and we want to, as soon as the program starts, okay, we want to bring up a dialog box. Sound familiar? All right, the same dialog box that we did before. Now, if you look up here, remember, these variables here were all created, and they were all created outside of any method, meaning these variables should be available to all of our methods without having to pass them in. In other words, these variables are global to our program. All right? But what I want to have happen is when the program starts, I want it to check and see if that chosen hand has got a value in it or not. And if it does have a value, I want to display it. In other words, this variable right here that's going to hold righty or lefty, if it's got a value in it, I want to display it right here. And if it doesn't have a value in it yet, I want this to display. Does that make sense? Plus, I want to set it up eventually, after we get done with that when I click choose, this comes back up again. Because maybe I chose the wrong hand. All right? Or maybe I'm doing it for another person or whatever. All right? So I'm going to come down here into my onCreate, and I'm going to say if chosen hand equal the empty string. All right? Again, in other words, if the variable, the shared preferences variable that we have that's called chosen hand, if it doesn't have a value, what we want to have happen is we want that alert box to come up. You all said you understood that. And earlier, I suggested that you grab that code that we had before and copy it to the clipboard. So I'm going to grab the code I copied and make some changes to it. So I'm copying it. I'm going to paste it right in here. There it is. But now I don't want it to say, is everybody happy? I want it to say righty or lefty. And then here it's going to say, are you right-handed or left-handed? I guess it'd probably be a hyphen there. All right. And here, I'm not going to log anything because that'd be kind of stupid, but I could. But I really don't want to log anything here, so we're going to change that. All right, so I'm going to change that in just a second. Also, that's not negative anymore, right? That's going to be right or left. So where it says right or lefty here, everything's cool up till this point. Not sure why I'm not getting that yet, but I will. Okay. So instead of this, for the set positive, instead of this saying yes, I want that to say, right. I can say righty. That's fine. All right. And what I want to have happen in here now, all right, if that's the case, what do I want to, you tell me. Okay, I press this button right there. Okay? And it's the button, I guess now it says righty, but it doesn't matter. What do I want to have happen when I press that button? Somebody tell me. Yes, sir. That's one thing. I want the word right to go up there, but there's something else I want to do. No, not yet. No. I've made a choice, correct? So I want to write that out to shared preferences. That's actually the more important thing because I'm saving that. Now, I'll think about it. Let's assume for a second that there were different keyboards or different, let's just say Android had different configuration if you were left-handed versus if you were right-handed. All right, then this might actually mean something to be able to save a setting like So I really shouldn't have used right either. I should have used right. It doesn't matter what you say. That's just what the button's going to say on it. That's all. All right, so on here, what I want to say is if that's true, I want to say shared preferences dot edit paren dot put string. And what is it going to be? It's going to be whatever the hand is. All right. And in this case, it's going to say whatever we want that to say up there. So if you want it to say right-handed, put right-handed here, all right, or left-handed. This is how it's going to be saved into permanent storage. All right, so you know, I'll just put righty. Okay? So that's the first thing that I want to do. But remember, I got to say dot apply, whoops, A-P-P-L-Y, paren, semicolon. Now I got to get rid of that. All right? So that's the first thing I want to do. And the second thing is what Mr. Rate said. I want to go to my text view, dot set text. And this is where you can have it say righty, right, right-handed. That's what's going to appear where the word hello world is. All right? Since I'll try to be a little consistent here, I'll put righty in there too. All right? We're not to the negative yet, but does everything that's happening here make sense? Did I explain it in a way that you understand it? All right? Again, righty or lefty? That's the title. Are you right-handed or left-handed? That's the message. We already put in here that we wanted it to be an alert. There's other types that you can put in there also, so you can go check those if you want to. If you'd rather have a question there or something else, you can do that. All right? Now for the positive button, it'll say right, and if you click it, two things should happen. It should copy that string righty into our shared preferences, and it should take what we have in our text view up here and change it to the word righty. Okay? Now, when we did the other one for the negative before, when we did this, we wanted that to do absolutely nothing. I think everybody'd agree with that. Now we don't want that to happen. What we want to do is we want to basically recreate all this stuff, all right? But instead of it saying righty or lefty, I'm sorry, right in here. Instead of it saying righty, we want it to say lefty. Does that make sense? All right, so for our negative button, for our positive, we set it up to right. So for our negative button, I'm just going to get rid of all that stuff that's in the parens right now. And I'm going to put left in there. And so what did we put before? We put right, so I'll put left. Again, a key thing here is be consistent. I don't really care that much what you say, but be consistent with the way you set everything up. All right? So that one's going to say left. And just like before, we are going to need everything that's in here, all this stuff. So I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. Oops. And I'm going to paste it in. All right. I need semicolon there. All right. But now where it says left, now what I want to write to shared preferences is left, or lefty, and I want the text view to say lefty. All right, so take a look at that. See if you can wrap your arms around it or whatever, and if it makes sense to you. That's what's more important to me. Questions? Now, what if it wasn't empty? I'm asking you that question. What if it wasn't empty? What does that mean?
Somebody had pushed
That means, well, yeah. Basically, if it's not empty, I mean, you could give the smartass answer and say, that means there's something in it, which is true. Which means, yeah, you've already determined whether they're a righty or lefty. So we don't have to do this, but I at least think it would be kind of nice if you're going to go to all the trouble of doing this, if maybe you'd put an else in here, and that else would say text view dot set text, and then it's whatever the chosen hand is. All right? So again, what that's saying, as Mike just said, if we've already chosen something, put whatever we chose in here. Make sure it's there. All right? Now, I could be wrong here, but I at least think that's all of our code. Okay? We may have to go back in and change one or two other things in a little bit, but that's it for the code. What I want to do now is I want to go in and I want to change this. I don't want it to be a plus sign, for example. All right? So this is the old one. I haven't run the new one yet, okay? I really should, but I haven't run it yet. So again, ideally what's going to happen when you look up on the screen here is when we run it the first time, it should look almost exactly like it does on the board there. The only thing we haven't changed yet is the word choose right there, and we're going to put that in right now. All right? Does all that make sense? Now, is there a chance, because I've got scribble notes here, that I screwed up and forgot to tell you something? Hey, it's me. So there's a good chance of that. But I will tell you, I didn't do it on purpose. And if for some reason there is something missing, we'll find it by the beginning of next class and we'll fix it. All right? So I'm going to come back, and in here, I'm again going to open up under menu. I'm going to open up menu underscore main.xml. And I'm going to change a few things, such as the title. All right? All right. I can, again, I'm going to put @string, and I'm going to put hand in there, which doesn't make any sense because I don't have anything that says hand. So, as you know, I've got to go over to values, go over to my strings, come over to here, so that word hand that you see right there, I guess I said choose before, but that's what's going to come up there. Okay? So, let's change that from choose to hand. I'm not taking another picture. If you weren't here today, I was going to say screw it, but I'm not supposed to talk like that when I'm making tapes, so I won't. All right, so we're coming back here again. We're coming back to our main menu. And now we can change this to @string hand because we've got that in there. All right. I'm going to change the ID. How about just calling it hand? Works for me. All right. Again, I don't care about this, so I can leave it or I can remove it. And I want this to say always. All right, now remember, when I ran this before, I got an error message. So I'm going to do a file, save all, but now I've got to go back to my code here. And as Thwan told us before, where it says action settings, this will now have to say hand. All right. Probably would have been better to call it change hand or whatever, but you get the idea. All right. So I'm going to do a file. I'm going to do a save all. Again, I've logged nothing right now because I don't really think I need to log anything in here. And I'm going to do a run. Let's, I guess my console already is empty. So if I made any mistakes, I'm going to find them out when I go and compile it. I broke some of the rules that I told you before, where I said you should code a little, run it, And I'm not making excuses, but I'm just being honest with you. The reason I didn't do that, you see how long mine takes before it comes up to run it? We're never going to get things done. All right? It's funny because a lot of the first year people are telling me, we need more demos and stuff in class. And you can have more demos, but the problem is some people, when you do a demo, are going to be able to, and some people are just going to fall behind and they're going to stay behind. And I don't mean to say you, because you weren't. You were fine, all right? But you know as well as I do, and John knows it probably better than most, that happens, whether you're a first year or a second year person. So we can do this, but if we could spend, if we meet for 17 weeks, we could have 34 times where we did this, what we're doing right now. And you might understand it better, but you never have any time to try things yourselves. All right? And like I said, knowing I did almost all this off the top of my head. So the chances of doing it off the top of my head and not making any mistakes probably aren't that good. But if I did, we'll try to find them by next class, fix them right away, and I'll put a working version of this out there. So the plan is for next class then, what we'll do is we will be creating a to-do list. So we're going to do that, boom, as soon as we get into class. Can we do it in one period? We're going to try to do it in one period. All right? The good news is that everybody in this room has gone through the database class. So I don't have to explain a select statement, etc. All right? When we get to that point, we won't have to talk about stuff like that. I'll just say, write this. And in some ways, it's going to look a little bit like PHP, where we would create a string and basically put it in there and do like an exec query type of thing. It's going to be somewhat similar to that. And it's not done identically, unfortunately, between iOS and Android, although they're both using SQLite, which again is a watered down version of a relational database management system. It does just basically everything. All right, so. Sooner or later, that'll come up and it'll start running. Hopefully, we'll try it and we'll see exactly what happens. So hopefully, you're to the point. Again, if we've got 8 more weeks, there's going to be at least 4 more topics that I'm going to cover, just so you know, after this. Okay? We are going to try to look at least because I've already been doing a little bit of it for iOS, we're going to see if we can do a little something with games for each one. We're going to also do something, we're going to have a lecture on like audio video. And you need also something which is along the lines of like a web view, where you can grab information from the internet and put it into your program. You need those. And there'll be at least one other thing. If it turns out that we have enough time that I can do some of these examples in one period, good. Then there's just more stuff that we can cover. I'm hitting most of the high points that are in your book. All right? The book also, both the Android book and the iOS book, do have chapters on SQLite. It might be, bless you, it might be in your best interest to and how long are those chapters? 5 or 6 pages. We're talking 2 chapters per book, something like that. So read 20 pages over the weekend if you're in both classes. Take a look at it because that might really help your understanding as far as what's going on. And you start to think about, there's all sorts of stuff we could have put in there. For instance, if you were having an internationalization type of program, this would be a dumb way to do it, but let's say that your program was available in English and Spanish. Maybe that would have been made more sense than right and left. All right? Again, whatever version I get done with this, I'll throw that out there on the folder with today's date on it also. All right, so that'll be out there. And if I need to fix it, then I'll fix it and throw the new one out there on Wednesday.
Did you send the help ticket or not?
No, I have not even gotten onto this, but I can do it right now that you mention it. And it'll be taped, so, that's kind of nifty.
I can do it.
No, I don't mind.
I just don't want Ben dancing all over me.
I know, you hate that, but
Sorry.
Just trying to ignore it. You're making a lot of noise up there.
well, would you call that software installation or technology support? Ah, heck with it. Let them figure it out.
I was actually gonna go with the other.
Oh well. There. Oh, we'll call it high. That's fine. Is that good enough, or do you,
Yeah. I was just-
15798. Well, that's always the good one. Unfortunately, righty or lefty has stopped, which means there is something that's in there right now that is incorrect. So I'll have to go back over it line by line, which I don't mind doing at all. All right? So there is a problem with it in its current format. All right? And notice, it's given me that, so I don't know. So. But I will grab the entire folder that I've got currently, which is on my H drive. Android, righty or lefty, copy. All right, so everybody sees this. All right, there, righty or lefty. That's my version currently. It's out there under the in-class folder from today. All right, and I'm going to zip this file also and put the zip version out there on Blackboard. So that'll be out there shortly. And as I notice, I've got another one here that I didn't zip, so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 128, 216, 218. I didn't do 310 either.